It's been running really solidly for this past week. It's had no problems, which is surprising, because I've been kind of making Raspberry Pi based NASs for a very long time at this point. Like, this was like the original Raspberry Pi NAS I had built probably back in 2015. And the problem with this is that it was a preposterous configuration. I think the software has gotten a lot better since then. So yeah, here's some pictures of how it was set up originally back in 2015. And the problem with this original NAS was that, because remember before when we were setting up all the software and stuff, we went through and made sure that everything would be persistent on reboot. So we configured those system files and some other stuff so that it would, like, engage the RAID array, mount all the drives, do all that stuff when the system reboots. The problem with this original NAS, Raspberry Pi based NAS I had built all those years ago, is that it didn't do that. I don't think I had it set up to like be persistent across reboots. So if I ever, whoops, bumped that camera. Sorry. So if I ever rebooted the system, everything was just gone. So that was annoying. And it was also painfully slow, maybe because it was just a bare Raspberry Pi 2 with a weird USB hard drive configuration that didn't make any sense. Probably. So, yeah. So yeah, this original Pi NAS just didn't work. Yeah, and then this is when I put it in this weird chassis thing. So I was like, oh, I have this old itty bitty little micro ATX computer case thing that I can use to this Antec ISK 310-150 that I can use to house it, and that'll make it good, and I can put some cooling fans to help cool the drives down. And that didn't help anything because I didn't have any way to actually power the fans. So there was that. So yeah, here it was set up. This was actually kind of a nice little chassis for the time. It had, nice front panel I/O, a DVD drive. I think it came with a 150 watt power supply. So for like a little tiny ultra low power office computer, that would have been fine. Oh, there's a weird color filter on it. Okay, so there's that. Yep. And then more recently, I had built a and then more recently, like last year or so, I tried to build a new NAS out of Lego because I've always wanted to build a Lego computer. I always thought, because I love Legos, I love computers, why can't I just combine them together? So that's what I had tried to build here, was a NAS with a Lego chassis. Actually, I had gone through multiple configurations, so yeah, so the original one I tried to build had like a Core 2 Duo in it. It was basically like, oh, let's try TrueNAS. I have this old Core 2 Duo, I have like 8 gigs of DDR3. Yes, those do work together because I had this Bizarro Land Zotac motherboard with like an NVIDIA chipset, and it allowed you to use DDR3 on LGA 775, which is super weird. Basically, the problem with this NAS was that the hardware was way too old and it was really unstable. Yeah, so it just was running off of a single 4 terabyte hard drive, which worked. There was me kind of building it. Yeah, so this was the kind of the final internal configuration. I eventually put another fan, so I upgraded this side panel. Basically, I had made these side panels so I can just pull them straight up and out. And then I had a fan right here, intake fan. This was an exhaust fan. And temperatures were great. The CPU was getting kind of warm because this cooler wasn't very good, and so that's why I put an extra fan here. And it had a single 4 terabyte hard drive, and that kind of worked. But when I did, because I think it had limited RAM, and I was trying to use true NAS and ZFS and stuff, so it just kept running out of RAM. And then when I did huge transfers, it would just crash halfway through. So that wasn't super good. So yeah, here's some more pictures. The fun thing about building a chassis out of Legos, you can add all these fun little details. So I put all these fun little windows on it and stuff. I didn't run Windows on it, obviously, but I put Windows on it. Here's the power supply. I think this was the power button. No, yeah, this was the power button and status LEDs for my original chassis from my original desktop I had built in like 2016. Yeah, and here was it. Here was the completed box. It was super cool. Yeah, so here was the fan, so the side panels could just slide up and out like that, which is super cool. Yeah, and here's when I added the extra fan to the front to give it more cooling power. Yeah, I could add all these fun little details like this. Here's this number 1, because this was, TrogNAS version 1. Here is the little I/O cover plate, with just the Ethernet going into my little switch there. And then eventually I was like, okay, so that NAS didn't work. So I had spent all this money. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this properly now. I'm going to get a modern motherboard. I think it was running a 5700G CPU cooler. CPU 5700G. It had like 120 gigabytes of RAM. I was going to put all these SSDs in there for caching. I ended up removing this, but initially this was a load-bearing member because this is a pretty large span to try to support. So this NVMe carrier, I still have this. I don't know what I'm going to do with it, but yeah, so this whole carrier board was a load-bearing member. Here's my 10 gig networking, 10 gig NIC. Here's where we put the power supply. Yeah, and as you saw from that intro photo, I ended up stacking the hard drives on top, so that's why I needed this. And I think having load-bearing PCI devices is probably not very good. Yeah, so there's my 128 gigs of RAM. Bada bing, bada boom. There's all the fun little windows. Again, I tried to make it out of Lego. So here's the intake fans on this side. Here's a bit more structural members. I tried to make it more structural on the top, but again, load-bearing carrier card. Yeah, I'll link these in the description if you're interested. And then here is my LEDs for status. So one of these was power, and one of these was hard drive activity, and then this was my rudimentary power switch. It was just touch the wires together. I was able to grab a power switch off of an old case. I think maybe that Antec case from the original Raspberry Pi NAS, and that worked better. But I didn't like this configuration because I didn't like this configuration because the hard drives were basically in their own little sleeping bags, so they were getting really warm, and that was like a big problem. So this didn't last very long. This only was probably actually live for like a couple of hours in this configuration because I just wasn't comfortable with running it that way. But I did prove that it was going to be a rock solid configuration if I just put it in a proper chassis. So yeah, I tried to make a Lego case and it just didn't really work out how I wanted it to. I eventually added another fan here. I eventually kind of were able to rebuild this drive caddy right here, and was able to space the drives a little taller, so I was able to get some more airflow through there. But no, this configuration just didn't really work out. Again, there's my load bearing M.2 carrier card and Ethernet, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I labeled all the drives so that I could be able to plug them back in exactly the same as they were before in case I needed to do that. Yeah. And then eventually, you see, oh, here's the this computer right here. This is my main desktop now. What happened? So eventually, I was like, okay, let's just get a proper chassis for this. So I rebuilt it all in this proper chassis. Eventually ended up putting this networking card into this top slot because it was wasn't getting enough PCIe bandwidth, and yeah, that was better. So, you know, it was a full, yeah, I tried to do weird networking stuff that didn't work. Eventually, I got a networking switch with 2 10 gig ports because I wanted 10 gig networking because this was going to be my editing NAS. So it had all these hard drives in it. It had 128 gigs of RAM for caching stuff. And this was going to be my, my NAS for video editing. I was going to, it was back a couple of years ago before I really kind of got this whole YouTube thing off the ground. I guess it's debatable whether it's actually taken off yet, but I think I'm doing really well. I'm really happy with my performance so far. So this was like the going to be the internet input, and then this was going to be a 10 gig link directly to my main PC at the time. But I eventually just replaced this switch with one that had 2 10 gig ports on it so that I could just have a much simpler interface, and then that worked perfectly. Because the problem here was that trying to get the computer to talk directly and then also get internet through this just didn't work. Yeah, and here are my Bionicles. I have my Bionicles on the top of the computer. I thought, oh, well, I want to add some Lego touches to it, so I ended up putting the Bionicle in the server, and that was kind of cool. Then eventually I built another one, which was super cool. So yeah, but eventually when I decided I wanted to switch to Linux full time, the motherboard that was in my PC at the time just didn't want to work under Linux for some reason. And I was like, I had just come back from school, from college, and I was like, I just graduated from college, and I was like, okay, I have this server is ridiculous. I don't need something that consumes this much power because all it ended up being, because I originally wanted to do like a whole bunch of stuff. So I wanted to do, it was going to be a Plex server, it was going to be a Pi-hole, it was going to be this, it was going to be that, it was going to be the other thing, I was going to be able to run all these Docker containers, it was going to be this cool fun thing. And then I just didn't do any of that. It was just an SMB share. It was like, well, this is preposterous. I don't need all of this. So I basically just requisitioned, this cooler, this motherboard, the whole chassis, all the RAM. I swapped out my 5800X3D into this, and then eventually as you might have seen from my 5950X in 2024 video, swapped the 5950X into here. I put my RX AMD RX 6600 video card. I removed this 10 gig networking, and then this became my main production PC right here. And then I added a 2 terabyte little Western Digital SSD that was my boot drive before. Bada bing, bada boom. Bob's your uncle. Oh, and then this was a Raspberry Pi Minecraft server. So I think I said in the Minecraft server video that I had tried this out before with the Raspberry Pi 5. I might have actually cut that out of the video, but yep, this was like a little Raspberry Pi Minecraft server thing. Yeah, this is why I like Power over Ethernet so much, because that way I don't have to have this extra cable. Everything can just be power and data right off of this. Oh, and then this was that 10 gig switch I was talking about, so that I could just have everything. It would just work. I can just have my main PC and this communicate through the two 10 gig ports on this switch, and then they could get internet normally through the switch as well. So that worked. And now I have this Raspberry Pi NAS. This is kind of like the final iteration of this whole saga. So yeah, this new Raspberry Pi NAS. So basically, I learned from this whole saga that I don't need anything fancy. I like, simple things that just work. And this is tiny. It consumes almost no power. And it just works. So there we go. That's the whole backstory of the NASs and stuff. So yeah, as you saw, I did a big old file transfer before. It was transferring at full speed with the Raspberry Pi NAS. Temperatures are good. And yeah, so that's that. Thanks for listening to my whole life story here, bro. Yeah, because I was gonna try to back in the day, I was gonna try to make a whole big video about building the ultimate NAS thing, and it's gonna be Lego and it's gonna be so cool. Then it just didn't work out, so I canned that video. I think I had a build. I had time lapse footage of me building it, building the Lego servers, but I don't know what happened to that footage. So now you just get to watch my PowerPoint presentation. So yeah, server works good. I might keep you updated on if it's, because this is my server. It's going to be running up. It's currently running up on top of the computer, kind of in the back there. I put another exhaust fan in the top back of the computer that's kind of blowing just a teensy bit of air on the server when the computer's running. So yeah. Oh man, is that my finger in the shot? That is so awkward. Oh my god, that is weird. So yeah, it works good. I'm happy. I guess I'll keep you guys updated on if it still works in future videos. Maybe I might do a aging wheels, kind of here's the state of the fleet, where I go through all of my different project boxes and tell you what's the shtick on that. So yeah. All right. Well, that's about it. See ya. Bye.